Hello, I'd like to call this meeting of the Jacksonville Planning Advisory Board for September 8th to order. We've got it to order. Let's, if you would, stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would bow with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be here on this gorgeous day. We thank you for those assembled here, this board up here that has pledged to do the company's business without prejudice or malice. We ask that you bless us to have wise decisions to make our community that much better. In his name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay. If everybody up here has had a chance to look at the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment on that? All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. We have the portion of the meeting where we allow public comment. Josh, are you sure you don't want to say anything to us? Tell us what a great job we're doing?
My wife don't want me to speak, but I'll.
You got 3 minutes, sir.
All right. Hey, I'm Josh Rudy. So I have a house in West Bayshore, and I just had a fence issue with some of the city people, and they made me do a 4-foot fence on the road, the main road. I can't remember the name of the road that's on the side where my garage is. And I actually had somebody come into the property in my boat and try to take my battery in my dad's RV. So I was just kind of here to say, if I look in all different directions, there's 6-foot fences that have been there for years. And I asked the lady that came out, you know, how come I can't do a 6-foot fence? And she said they just started enforcing the rule about a year ago. So I was a little disappointed with that. So I'm just here to support you guys making that change. I think the change is for the better because I was trying to make the place look nicer, and I bought it. It was kind of dilapidated, and it just was in rough shape. Took down a lot of trees, make it better. It made that whole corner better. But then we got a whole anonymous thing where they can turn you in anonymously, and I couldn't figure out who was doing it. So I've been doing a little investigation. But if it's a waste of time, you know what I mean, just over a fence. So I'd appreciate if you change the rule or give me a waiver, variance, whatever I need to make that area look better. So that's my little spiel. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks for talking, Josh.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Ben Schaefer, is there anything you'd like to say to us, sir?
I'd just like to introduce myself.
Great, thank you all. I've been working with Ryan here for the past few months now in development at 108 Gateway Drive South, right behind Kimbrell's Hobby Lobby, adjacent to a future multifamily development there. And we're just looking to improve that lot. It's been vacant for a while, overgrown. We think this development's going to kind of finish off that block. All three neighboring developers or landowners have been in support with us, trying to integrate this property such that it's not out of place. It fits in seamless as it goes back to that park. So we think it's a low draw on traffic, utilities, and it's going to be a very nice development. I appreciate all your time and your consideration on this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else have anything to say to us? Feel free to tell us what a great job we're doing. Thank you. All right. You have in front of you, board, the minutes from last meeting. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented unless you have a correction.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There we go. All right. Logan, give you the opportunity if you have anything to say from the city council.
I can count some 2 things pretty quickly. So
All right.
I'm gonna do a little quick interest. Yesterday was Sturgeon City's 25th anniversary. That was a big thing downtown, so that was pretty big. Councilman Edwards, she's been working on the mural all the way around the old tank. So if y'all start seeing that, I think she's like halfway done, I think she says, but she's fantastic at that kind of stuff. So that's going on, and then September 26th, downtown Newbury Street, they're gonna have a block party opening that up to get people, you know, interested in coming back downtown. So hopefully that'll be a good turnout for that as well, and that'll help out the businesses and all that after getting all the road work and that stuff out of the way.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate your good work. I talked with Cindy the other day, and she wishes she was halfway done.
Oh, she's not that far along?
No.
Okay.
It's a,
Well, she can do better.
it's a gorgeous piece of work. Where she has finished, it is really spectacular.
Gotcha.
So, very good. There is no old business here, so move it to new business on special use permit and type 3 site plan. Take it away, Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman, Planning Board members. Agenda item number 1 tonight is a special use permit and type 3 site plan for Gateway Drive CCSS, which is a self-service storage facility located at 108 Gateway Drive South. As you just heard on the public comment session, Mr. Ben Schaefer is here on behalf of the clients, which is MV Investment. I'm going to go through the slides, just kind of give you an overview. This is the project site. Marine Chevrolets is the automobile sales across the way, and as Mr. Schaefer alluded to, the retail sales to the south are the Kimbrell's Furniture and the Hobby Lobby, just to kind of orient everybody. The vacant undeveloped land to the north is owned by the city of Jacksonville, and we are in the process of reviewing site plans for a multifamily apartment that is proposed for a portion of that vacant undeveloped tract. Basically, there's a new lot line that kind of follows this line here, and it's about 6 acres. So that's proposed to be to the north. Because this is going to city council next week, we've already posted the newspaper ads, and the letters have been sent out to the adjoiners, the newspaper ads, and then the signage here on the site. This is a copy of the site plan. So it's a 3-story, 102,000 square foot climate-controlled storage facility. As you can see, minimal parking because there's not a whole lot of traffic generated that these type facilities generate on a daily basis. This has been through the TRC. We still have some outstanding items. I'll get to that here in a moment. The property is zoned corridor commercial, as is all the surrounding area except the area to the north, which is residential multifamily high density. As a result, there'll be some buffering required to the north. However, if you look closely, there's a 60-foot easement, 30 on both sides of the tract of land, and then there's a 50-foot easement within this area. So all of the landscaping is going to be concentrated within this area here, except for where this fire department turnout is. So it's going to be a reduced width. The UDO table allows us to reduce the widths because they're going to have 60 feet of total area, but only the planting and the fencing will be within the 10-foot area. And then the CAMA land use plan identifies this property as regional commercial, and self-service mini storage facilities are, items that are found within that. So moving on to the staff report. On the page 8, this project came in to the city staff back in March, and we've been reviewing that with our technical review since then. The property owners are somebody other than the applicant, so we had to make them aware that this meeting is going to be held on Tuesday night for city council. Norris and Tunstall is the design professionals out of Wilmington that's been developing these plans. As mentioned, the zoning is surrounded by corridor commercial except the area to the north, which ties into the landscaping buffering assessment, which I already alluded to. The site itself is going to have the standard, because the property line that's here, there is no perimeter lawn that's required down this buffer. It will have the 4-foot buffer around the other area. Since this is a regional pond for the entire development, there will be landscaping along this area, and then the buffer here and the street lawn across the front. We've done the lighting assessment. The proposal meets the UDO standards. The location is not within the flight path overlay, so there's no additional standards that comes into play with that. On page 9 and 10, you'll see that these are the use-specific standards that are applicable to self-service mini storage. And once the site plan has have full sign-offs by staff, all of those standards will be met. We are allowed to do conditions of approval, which, since there's a few outstanding items, that's why we're recommending conditional approval. The outstanding items you can see on the bottom of page 11 and the top of 12. And then the findings of fact A through G, we found them, as far as preliminary staff findings, all being found in the affirmative, with the exception of Part D. And based on our staff findings, we mentioned that it will meet all of those standards once we receive the revised site plan addressing all of those comments. And then, as you'll find in your options to approve, defer, or deny, staff is recommending B, which is approve the special use permit and type 3 site plan with the following conditions, which is submission of that revised site plan, meeting the city standards, those few adjustments that we've already identified. With that being said, be happy to answer any questions that the board may have as relates to this special use permit and type 3 site plan.
But, Ryan, I noted that you mentioned in your description that there has to be a permit, special use permit, because of storage in that particular corridor commercial. And I remember some months ago, I was talking about storage, and in the old days, the storage was the typical chain link fence around a rather utilitarian-looking storage facility. Is this going to be one of the, if you've seen there's a new one on 258, you know, an attractive-looking building, you don't necessarily know what it was if it didn't have a sign on it. Is that what the plan is here, or what are we doing?
So the city of Jacksonville does not require a fence around the perimeter.
No, but-
So
yeah.
with that one, I think at the triangle, which is the
that's
facility you're
really
alluding to, I think that they've chosen to do that, and there's not an ordinance that prohibits that as long as it meets the standards set forth in the UDO, as Mr. Udy kind of alluded to. We do have fence standards, and that's actually the second item that Michaela is going to be presenting on tonight, and we talked about with you last month in workshop session. So, but I believe since this is an indoor facility, and I don't want to put Ben on the spot, but if he knows, then he can certainly nod yes or no, but I don't believe there's any fencing proposed around the perimeter of this location. The only fencing proposed is the fencing that may already be around the detention pond, which the city no longer requires, and then the buffer yard to the north.
Yeah, my alluding to the fencing is, you know, the storage units of 20, 30 years ago all kind of looked alike, you know, with a chain link fence. Ben, is this one of those attractive-looking storage facilities?
Yes, sir. So we spent the last,
And if you would, please come, that's all right,
Yeah,
just
come
so
on.
the microphone can catch it.
Don't mean to put you on the spot, Ben, but love to hear it.
Absolutely. I appreciate the questions. As Ryan mentioned, we've been working with staff since March of this year. And one thing that we develop is Class A climate-controlled self-storage, so all interior access. There's no exterior units. You don't see any roll-up doors. Knowing the potential development or the development coming north of us, we were very cautious and understanding that we didn't want those residents looking onto a large metal box that may or may not be attractive. So working with staff, our own architectural firm, and our own pride, you can check out our website, see the quality that we provide. We will have signage that says storage, but if you're driving down the road, you would not necessarily know it is just a large
Yeah,
box.
good.
Let me ask you a question. How do you get access to this? I mean, I see where the road turns in there, but as
Sure.
far as somebody renting storage space from you, I mean, typically you don't need a lot of places to park. But if you get a bunch of people, I mean, how are they gonna get access to their stuff?
So I don't know if Ryan's going to draw it or not, but in that front corner, the top left corner right there is our sales office. So you go in, there'll be a manager on site. They can come in, rent, buy boxes they need. If you shift down to the right just a little bit past those parking spaces around that right there, perfect, thank you, Ryan, is a sliding glass door that enters into a lobby. So it's secured access, you punch a code in. There's a 30 by 30 foot bay right there with elevators that go up. So you can come in and out of that lobby as need be within the permitted operation hours.
I mean, is there a potential that it could get,
Really up
say,
to
10, 15, 20 people
storage.
show up and they want to get their stuff, or how are they gonna manage that?
Very fair question. We have developed about 20 of these in the last 8 years across the southeast. And apart from the first, call it 6 months of operation, we usually kind of stabilize, and we might have 7 to 10 vehicles per day coming in. In those first 6 months, we've never had more than 10 cars at one time on any of our facilities.
Well, you see what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you get a bunch of people all stacking up and they're trying to either offload or unload or whatever, offload or, load their stuff up and get out of there. And now they're waiting, for someone to move their vehicle, and then it just causes a little tension, Yeah, that's called time management, so yeah.
Understood. Yeah, we just, in our experience, at our facilities, we don't see that staging
Okay.
occur.
Oh.
It's, we see people
Wouldn't
come
ask.
in and then most of the time leave their stuff, apart from some individuals that might come in and get a bag or a box every so often and head back out.
Yeah.
So I understand the question. I appreciate the question.
If you look at our parking assessment on page 9, the Unified Development Ordinance actually doesn't have a set standard, and, because it's a use with variable parking demand characteristics. And if you remember the mini storage that was there on Gum Branch Road that was back in March of this year, I think they had like 2 parking spaces. So this facility already has more, because it's not something where we have a set standard.
Well, that's what I wasn't asking about, requiring so many, just like regular commercial buildings, you have to have so many per square foot, like
Right.
an office. That's not where I'm going with this, I just see if what it gets stacked up, when you first get everybody in there and everybody's waiting and that, I'm thinking outside the box. I'm not saying you need more parking spaces, it's just something, okay, how does manage that, people coming in and out and all that stuff, so.
Very
You don't
valid
want to
question.
create, don't want to create congestion, let's put it that way. And now people are sitting out here on Gateway South trying to get in there, and it's like, you can't get in there, so.
Understood. We can
Okay.
take that back and chat with our civil, but in our experience, as I mentioned, we don't
Okay,
see
that's
staging
cool.
build up like that.
Yeah.
I've got a question, comment. We've approved, I don't know, a half dozen or more of these in the last 12 months. A self-storage facility seems to fit in a commercial corridor zoning. Is there a mitigating reason we should be seeing these as special use permits instead of just a by right zoning?
It's a great question. Over the years, it used to be anything over 25,000 square feet would require a special use permit. And the council made a decision along the way, and with the adoption of Unified Development Ordinances, you have the standards right, and then you make everything approved by staff to a certain point, and then after that, it goes into council's management report. So right now, anything, I believe it may still be 25, it's either 25 or 40, it then goes through staff approval, but then goes to city council for the final say. And if there's concerns, they can bring that to a meeting. So that's something that if the board feels that that's something to where it should be a permitted use versus a special use, or even if staff felt that way, we could bring forth an amendment to be considered. Just like we talked with the board last month about signage and the fencing that we're getting ready to talk about again, with an adoption, that's the feedback that I think that staff would like to hear from the planning board as the recommending board on changes that we need to make.
I don't think we've ever turned one down, have we? Or recommended a
but-
turn down?
To my point earlier, Matt, I think it was when they were, 30 years ago, let's just say they weren't the most attractive commercial properties in town. Now some of these storage, the one out there at the corner of Western and Gum Branch, a good-looking facility. This is, from what Ben is saying, it's going to follow in the same suit. If you've seen the one on 258, that's
Oh, yeah.
rather attractive. So you're right, but what if somebody comes along and builds the old style and puts it someplace that won't be attractive?
Well, I
I
would-
disagree. I think by right, if you own a commercial property, you should be allowed to sell to a commercial buyer that wants to do this without having to go through a special use permit.
Well, at the top of page, at the bottom of page 9, all the way through to the top of page 11, these are use-specific standards that are just for self-service mini storage. So that's where, kind of looking at everything that's being said, if your standards for this use are in the code the way that they need to be, then you could consider having an approval process that's easier than one that goes through an additional 2 months' worth of review time to get it before the planning board and city council. If your use-specific standards are like they need to be, and if you look at number 15, because I know that Ben kind of alluded to, but if you look at number 15, it says the exterior facades of all structures shall receive uniform architectural treatment, including, and it goes on to specify materials and then colors compatible with the area. And, there's already things that are kind of built into place. So if your standards are right, then you could look to back off on the approval process. And this would still go to city council in a management report.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Ryan, I know you said the stormwater pond was like a community stormwater area. Is there any specific regulations that would make them put a stormwater pond in rather than piggybacking off, I guess, someone else's pond or?
So from what I understand, because I'm not the stormwater person, and Ben might want to come up here and add something to this if he knows, but these community ponds, when they're developed, it's for each lot within the development. So this lot, and this lot all get to drain to this pond. That pond was sized accordingly to the development proposal on each one of these tracks. So let's say that each one of these sites is allowed 80% lot coverage from BUA purposes because this pond will accommodate it. Then they've factored that into that original development. So they'll all pay into the maintenance of that pond. And from a staff standpoint, we think that community ponds are a benefit because instead of having them spread everywhere, then you have one larger pond that can accommodate all the development. So, they will have to get a stormwater permit modification because this is going to be the first time that this site is developed and is going to go into that pond. So as long as they get their clearances to do that, and they may already have them, then, they may have to go out there and clean the pond out, for example. But there's things that are set up for that very reason. So we actually think this is a great thing that it goes into one pond instead of having 3 or 4 different ponds.
What about that little piece behind it? It looks like its own little rectangle.
That is owned by the city of Jacksonville, just like this is owned by the city of
Oh, it's the
Jacksonville.
same piece.
It's actually separate. This is a separate lot that the city owns.
But the square footage does not affect, it doesn't, I know you have built upon area that is separate from square footage, I guess, like, because obviously this could be a 100,000 square foot building.
It's the built-upon area. So if they're limited to 80% of this 2.14 acre site, then they cannot exceed that 80% or whatever the number is, unless they do something to modify that permit.
Okay.
But more than likely, they're going to be stuck to whatever that maximum amount is. And I can tell you, ponds like this they're all over Jacksonville. I mean, I can think about when Dr. Morgan did the development where Zaxby's and Audi is. It goes to the pond in the back. The Western Forum, which is where Academy Sporting Goods, it all drains to the pond in the back. It's something that we see all over town since the stormwater rules went into effect, versus some sites have their own. I mean, the Murphy Express on Yacht Road and Richlands, they got underground sand filter. You wouldn't necessarily know it when you drive by, but I mean, they've got a chamber, and it just serves that one site. It doesn't serve any others.
It looks like Marine Chevrolet has one on their property.
That is correct.
Yeah. Anything else for us, Ryan?
That's all that I have, unless the board has any other questions for me.
Anybody?
Thank you.
With that, is there anyone up here that would care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the self-storage special use permit for the site just discussed as finding facts A through G being found in the affirmative, and the project offers a commercial resource to the community.
What about the condition?
I have a motion and a second.
What about the condition? The revised site plan? Due to the outstanding TRC comments.
Oh, the last. Matt, would you like to amend your motion to include that last sentence, please?
And to also amend that to include the condition.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion.
And I will second that.
We just have a second. Chase? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. All right, let's do some fencing.
Good evening. I know you all are very, very excited to talk about this fencing part. I will start by saying this is my second time in council chambers. It's much more exciting with the lights on. So I may rely on my assistant Ryan over here every now and then to help me if there's anything that I'm working through. So yes, we have two parts to this text amendment for our UDO, our Unified Development Ordinances. The first article is for 2.3, standards and requirements for development applications, and then also for 5.4, fences and walls. So to start with Article 2.3, this will be an elimination of the driveway exemption that's currently in place. So Article 2.3 requires that Article 2.3 requires zoning permits for developments to comply with existing standards. So as one of the purposes of the UDO is to ensure compliance and consistency, currently there is an exemption for driveways under 2.3 F2 specifically. However, this exemption actually contradicts itself because driveway permits are required by city code and the NCDOT standards. So to eliminate conflict and lessen confusion for staff, but also for residents, planning staff recommends that we eliminate the exemption, therefore to include driveway permits within Article 2.3. Then for Article 5.4, for fences and walls, specifically for adjustments to corner lots. This planning staff recommends that we increase maximum fence and wall height from 4 feet to 6 feet for those fences and walls that are between the principal building and the corner side setback. So this would be removing the additional restrictions for corner lots, specifically in mixed use and residential zones. And so essentially we'll be treating fencing for corner lots and interior lots within the same way. And the outcome of this would be to increase clarity for residents while also eliminating nonconformities that were installed prior to the UDO. So again, the intention here is to treat both the interior lots and corner lots the same. This will allow residents to fence in more of their property on corner lots and increase the height of the fences that are there. Oops, excuse me. So as a reminder from our workshop, this is one of the figures that is currently in the UDO to exemplify what is allowed for fencing. On the left, we have the existing, and on the right is the proposed figure. A couple things to note quickly about the proposed is that staff recommends adjusting the yellow sight triangle that you see to more accurately depict what is truly correct in the standards. There's no change to the standards there, just correctly depicting it. But specifically, what I'd like to focus on with this is, as you can see following the red line, pushing out the 6-foot maximum for fences closer to, all the way up to the property line, on the property line, where previously that would have been a 4-foot restriction. So this will allow, again, to fence in more of the property for corner lots and the corner side setback and of a higher height. And then to wrap up with the UDO text amendment, the North Carolina General Statutes 160D requires that the planning board consider both consistency and reasonableness. For this case, since we're focusing on text amendment and not zoning map, which would trigger reasonableness, consistency is the main focus for today. Just in general to consider if this is an amendment that is consistent with the CAMA land use plan. And staff does find that this is consistent specifically with CAMA Plan Policy 38.2 to revise the development regulations to be responsive to innovative development proposals and existing conditions. Planning staff believes that this amendment will promote more uniformity. So again, when considering driveway permits, since city code and the North Carolina Department of Transportation already require driveway permits, this will eliminate any existing conflict and make things that they comply. And corner lot owners will no longer need to seek any additional design standards and restrictions in the UDO to also ensure compliance. So great outcome with this is easier for residents to understand and to reduce any confusion there with some of the existing standards. Thank you.
Logan, since you're going to be presented with this at City Council next week. Does everything make perfect sense to you? Do you have any questions?
No, does this kind of answer your questions that you had?
Yeah, it does. It lines it out a little.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I think it's fair to people that can be able to do that and make it a little bit easier. And it still keeps the safety aspect in line, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? If it's the board's pleasure that we recommend to City Council to approve this change, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It has it. Thank you, ma'am. And at this point, I believe,
Rob, I have one question. I mean, not really about that, but since you already put your fence up, right, and you were in question, so is this stuff able to stay like it is?
He actually reduced to 4 feet.
yeah,
Okay.
So he could certainly come back and add to it or take it down and go back to 6 feet as long as it's on his property within that corner side setback, if this is adopted by the mayor and council next week.
Gotcha, okay.
I didn't want the fine, so I just went ahead and did for it.
Gotcha, okay.
So pre-existing people that are in violation, they'll come into code now, they'll be fine.
So if there is, so there's a difference with nonconformities versus illegal. So if somebody's done it since the UDO was adopted in 2014 wrongfully, then they're illegal. They're not grandfathered. They're not nonconforming. They're illegal. If there's a fence that existed prior to this standard, they are what's called nonconforming, which means it can stay that way. There's no violation. It's a legal nonconformity. Now, if this change occurs, then the nonconformity or the illegalness of it goes away.
makes sense. Well, and I really appreciate the sensitivity to the sight line for those motorists that are coming up to those corners. And I think I mentioned last time, there are some places in town where there's hedges that if you're not careful, you can't see something coming. You've got to really be super careful pulling out, so.
So when staff was working on this amendment, and being that Laura and Michaela are new to the team, we're actually driving around town.
Yeah.
And we were specifically looking at really both the fence issue, and we saw several examples. We don't know whether they're non-conforming or whether they were illegal.
Right.
But there's an awful lot of them that, I think some of them have been there a while. But the other thing is that we've had situations where the landscaping piece comes into play. The maximum height for landscaping at that intersection, that side triangle, is 36 inches. So we have had to send, as Mr. Udy alluded to, we've had to send zoning code enforcement out for folks that have planted the items that get too tall, which cause a safety hazard issue.
Yeah.
And we've had to deal with that, and that's not been a popular thing either. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting there at that stop sign, you need to be able to see left and right. And then there's other cases where people have a difficult time, but it's actually not within the site triangle. There's a site that comes to mind very quickly that we've had some complaints on it, but it's on private property. It's not within a site triangle. It's kind of where the stop sign sits is a little far back.
Gotcha, okay. All right. Ryan, the next thing here is your report, and I'm going to toss you a softball to include in your report where we've wanted to have little tidbits of learning on things, if you'll update us on flood maps in Jacksonville.
All right, I will actually give you two items. Jennifer Ansel was our Chief Zoning Code Enforcement Officer. She actually has been very involved with what we call RCCP 1 and 2. Can't tell you what that means. Sorry, Chairman, I know how we are with acronyms. But the City of Jacksonville was actually awarded an $85,000 non-matching grant to update our CAMA land use plan. So we are in the process of beginning that. I'm sure there will be some, because we've got to meet the Department of Environment, it's DCM or DEM, another acronym, but Department of Environmental something or another, that we're going to be involving the public with updating our 2010-2011 CAMA plan. We've had it for over 10 years now. So we're going to update that plan. And that's something that you'll begin to hear more about and maybe asked to be involved with for that, that CAMA land use plan. And there's a couple of things that are going on with that. There's a military installation readiness, something or other. It's called MER. And we're going to try to make those kind of all fit together. We just got to make sure that it checks those boxes for the CAMA land use plan component. We've been assigned a contractor. It's called, the name of the contractor is Kleinfelder. I think do we have a kickoff? Is it tomorrow or the next day? So we're going to actually get together with our contractor for the first time tomorrow, and we'll be kicking that process off. So you'll see more, you'll hear more from us and more on social media as we move forward with that process. And the second item is the flood update. So if you may recall, in 2016, the state of North Carolina released new preliminary flood maps. And it saw areas of Jacksonville, most notably the downtown area, was going from not in a flood zone to elevation 10 requirement. And there's areas along the river that were at 3 or 4 that were being put in that same 10 elevation. And staff had some concerns. Council authorized us to hire Applied Technology Management, which ATM, it's an international company. And based on their investigation and studies, we filed that appeal. And since that time, because 2016 was quite a few years ago, the state has used some additional information and reran the models. And as a result, that 10 in downtown specifically is now 7. So it's more in line with what we saw during Hurricane Florence. And if you look at the Court Street, Wardola, Loyola, it does historically flood. Yep. And I think it should be in a flood zone. It's just the elevation is where we were kind of had some concerns. There were some other parts of town where we had some concerns, like Carolina Forest. It wasn't even developed in 2000, 2001, which is what the LIDAR data they used, the state used. Well, that development has taken place since that time. There was an item over in Belfort Homes that it was, they call it hydraulically disconnected. There was no connection, but yet it all of a sudden showed as being in a flood zone. So there were several things that staff identified, so we filed that appeal. We now have the new revised flood maps. They can be viewed by going online. It's called www.fris, so FRIS.nc.gov. Or is it fris.gov?
What does FRIS stand for?
Flood risk. Hold on, let me get my phone here. Or Michaela, she might be able to help me. She may get to it quicker than I will. But it's, I think it's www.fris.nc.gov. We actually had an open house here at City Hall last week on Wednesday. It was very well attended. Yeah, it's fris.nc.gov. It's Flood Risk Information System. So when you plug that in and you put in your address, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a button that says effective and preliminary. The effective is what we're currently operating under. The preliminary is what it's proposed. And so you can go to your specific property and see what the flood maps are going to look like with the adoption. So there's a 90-day appeal period that starts over again. That appeal period starts on September the 18th, and it runs through the 18th of December of this year, 2025. After that appeal period, depending on what happens during that appeal period, the city at some point will receive a letter of final determination. And that will kind of establish, okay, well, the new flood maps are going into effect. So until then, we can't use the preliminary maps. We can't use it if it gets better or if it gets worse. We are bound to use the current adopted effective maps. Now, you may recall that Onslow County, they adopted the flood maps. So this only impacts, I think there's 33 panels that are in the Jacksonville area. Now, there's some areas where, especially with our ETJ reduction that we've done over the years, and then with the military base, that there's some of those panels that are not within the city of Jacksonville today, but the results of that appeal will be impacted on those panels. So if there's any questions, they can call either Jennifer Ansel, Laura Oxley, Michaela Hennigan, or myself. Jump on that webpage and take a look. We'll be happy to answer questions. Stop by and see us. It's always best to set up an appointment But, I mean, during normal business hours, 8 to 5, usually somebody is there that can assist. And basically, we're going to pull up your property and show you what the new maps are, and there's elevations. One other item that I would point out here is if you're going to be put into a flood zone, because one of the things that we also saw when we went to New Bern for the release of the maps was that Jacksonville had the highest percentage of anybody in the state of structures being put in the special flood hazard area, the SFHA. We were going from 500 and some structures to 13 or 1,800, I can't remember now. And that was a huge increase. Now, some of those are accessory buildings, some of them are houses, some of them are commercial buildings. But if you don't have flood insurance and you're going to be put in a flood zone, you want to consider talking to your insurance company and making sure you have those conversations, because there could be some financial benefits of getting that policy in place prior to the maps becoming effective. And sometimes there's a little bit of a grace period, like right now during hurricane season. If there's a named storm, good luck at adding insurance because there's a grace period. So it's conversations, and that's why I'm being a little long-winded with this tonight. If you're not sure, check that webpage, come see us, talk to your insurance company about getting some sort of flood insurance on your house. And just because you're not going to be put in a flood zone, if you're near the river, if you're near a creek or stream, I would strongly urge you to consider it, because it could make the difference if you are unfortunately impacted by floodwaters.
I would have thought New Bern would have had us on this one, or at least the downtown area of New Bern, because they went underwater pretty hard during Florence as well.
Well, they may have already had structures in a flood zone, so it may have just that the elevation went higher.
Okay.
In Jacksonville, it was just the number of structures that were being brought into.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I can tell you a lot of those, some of them are accessory buildings along creeks and streams that are not currently in a flood zone, but they will be. And they just see it as a plus. There's a structure that's being added. They don't go into that, well, is that a house?
Gotcha.
Is that a commercial structure? They just see that there's a structure that's moving into the special flood hazard area, because you do have to do certain things even for accessory buildings as relates to flood mitigation.
And it doesn't have to be the entire structure, something I learned. Even a corner of a structure then puts you at a completely different insurance
Correct.
quote area.
So one of the things the city of Jacksonville has is if we're going to go to whatever the elevation is, for downtown, it's going to 7. But as you go up river and up in elevation, those numbers, you can't just say it's going to be a 10. You got to look at where you are specifically. But Jacksonville's got a 3-foot freeboard requirement in our flood damage prevention ordinance. So if it goes to 7 in downtown, we're requiring 3 foot above that flood stage. So that's why if you look on Court Street, there's been a couple of houses that have been new houses where there were not houses before, and then there's been one that's been torn down and being rebuilt. They have opted to elevate. So when we talk to people, we say, look, we can't make you elevate, but you just need to be aware that these new flood maps, are going to be a thing, that it's in the pipeline. And now it's even closer to being reality than it was a few months ago, a few years ago. We can't make you do that, but we strongly encourage you to at least look at it and make a decision based on that, knowing that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you very much. All right, at this point, I believe that completes the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I make a comment real quick?
You want to make a comment?
Yep.
Oh,
If you don't mind.
Dr.
Just,
Hassan, make a comment.
Just want to bring to everybody's attention, let's not forget 9/11's coming up. Yeah, I know it's been a long time since that's happened, tragically to our country. It affects all of us. And let's take time out in our day to remember those people who've lost their lives, who gave their lives. And but if you look back, it has an impact. It's had an impact on our country. So let's not forget our history. We learn from history so we can improve upon ourselves and become even a greater nation than what we are. A lot of division, a lot of tension in the world, but let's not forget, and let's teach our children history so that we don't make those same mistakes. So please take a moment. It's coming up, and let's not forget that. So many times time goes by and we tend to forget those things. Let's not forget that day. Thank you.
Doug, thank you very much. Anybody else on the board have anything to say before I will accept the motion? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good.